Hi friends, today we are going to discuss this topic, impact of Darwin on Victorian literature. Charles Robert Darwin was born in 1809. He was an English biologist, geologist, and naturalist. His theory of evolution by natural selection is considered to be the foundation of modern biological studies. He died in 1882. In this session, we shall discuss the impact of his ideas on Victorian literature within the framework of the development of his theories. We must realize that Darwin's theory of evolution was not a sudden revelation or epiphany. Already, other naturalists were working on this. What Darwin actually did was to codify them in the most empirical manner. For example, William Paley, in his work, which was published in 1802, Natural Theology, had likened God to a clockmaker who operates the machinery of nature in a meticulous fashion. In the period between 1831 and 1836, Darwin studied the geology and zoology of South America and was amazed by the abundant variety of species, both extinct and surviving. He also read Charles Lyell's Principles of Geology, which was published between 1830 and 1833. And an earlier article, it was Thomas Malthus's Essays on the Principle of Population, which was published in 1798. Other naturalists like Lamarck had already proposed in 1809 that creatures can evolve and acquire new traits. By the end of 1830, Darwin had worked out his theory of evolution by natural selection, although it was finalized in 1858 with the help of another naturalist, Alfred Russel Wallace. In 1859, Darwin published his historic work on the origin of a species by means of natural selection. The Origin of Species was written in lucid language. The book contains rich and romantic prose with scientific precision and clarity. It captured the Victorian imagination quickly in the backdrop of the swift transformations taking place in the social, political, and economic structure of England. Science had become something definitely visible to the Victorian public in the form of the smooth spewing factories, railways, electricity, and other discoveries and inventions. At the same time, there was a great outcry against Darwin's theory, which claimed that all species develop through the natural selection of small, inherited variations that increase the species' ability to compete, survive, and to reproduce. Life had sprung from a single cell organism, and eventually man had developed from the ape. It was in direct contrast with the book of Genesis in the Bible that says, "Then God said, let us make mankind in our image, according to our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the wild animals of the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth." So God created humankind in his image. In the image of God, he created them, male and female, he created them. Obviously, it also challenged the idea of a benevolent Christian God by endeavoring to prove that natural world is a vicious and brutal place. As I have already explained, Darwinism was not an out-of-the-blue concept. The theory of evolution had been taking shape since the advent of the 19th century and had influenced many creative authors before The Origin of a Species was published in 1859. Tennyson mentions evolutionism in his poetry much before the publication of The Origin. He also had read Lyell's Principles of Geology, and these lines from Locksley Hall, which was published in 1842, pre-echo the ideas. Yet, I doubt not through the ages one increasing purpose runs and she thought and the thoughts of men are widened with the process of the suns. Although In Memoriam was published in 1950, 10 years before the origin of the species, Tennyson hinted at evolution in its epilogue when he spoke of the crowning race. No longer half akin to the brute, for all we thought and loved and did, and hoped and suffered is but seed of what in them is flower and fruit. This is his idea of the crowning race. It is the recurrence of lines like these in Memoriam that has made many label Tennyson a poet of evolution. Tennyson himself has confessed that he had pondered over evolution, but his idea of evolution was quite different from Darwin's. He considered the evolution of the species as a transmutation of the spiritual wonder guided by the hand of God. For example, he writes in passage 118 in Memoriam, "Arise and fly, the reeling fawn, the sensual feast, move upward, working out the beast, and let the ape and the tiger die." The naturalist T.H. Huxley was convinced that Tennyson was one of those rare poets that understood the drift of science. Tennyson's closet drama, The Promise of May, talks about automatism in man and the callous cruelty of nature. Tennyson also had perceived the hedonistic implication of Darwinism and had chosen to oppose it. Another author, Herbert Spencer, wrote that evolution and progress are much the same thing. Irwin has commented that in its deification of an evolutionary life force, his humanitarianism is startling and new. Swinburne reinstates Darwin's theory of the struggle of the species in him to man. His health tattoo is an endorsement of Darwinism. A similar effort is made in Poems and Ballads that was published in 1866. As the theory of evolution shocked the Anglican Church, so did Swinburne shock the Victorian sense of morality with his verse dealing with natural religion and eroticism. George Meredith, another poet, published The Woods of Westermain in 1883. Natural selection has finally created the ultimate brain, the human brain, which is the highest attainment. Change, the strongest son of life, has the spirit here to wife. For Thomas Hardy, civilization was a principal and cerebral development. He finds man to be a mistaken creation in a Darwinian universe. Hardy categorizes nature with the laws of universe in his drama The Dynasts, and sees her as a spiteful mother who wounds the lives she loves. It explains why he infuses pessimism in nature in his dark regional novels like Duke the Obscure. It is his censor of savage determinism. The Darwinian dilemma is also visible in the works of some of the later poets of the Victorian age. The Victorian novelty oscillated between a denunciation of Darwinism to its approval. The more important among them are Robert Elsmere by Ward, Autobiography of Mark Rutherford by W.H. White, and Charles Kingsley's Water Babies, which was published in 1863. Many of George Meredith's novels appear to follow an evolutionary trajectory. The reproductive choice manifests strongly in his novel The Egoist. The rise of science fiction during the Victorian age had something to do with the notions that espoused Darwinism. Its spirit of scientific and empirical query must have influenced Jules Verne's Journey to the Center of the Earth, published in 1864. H.G. Wells's The Time Machine came out in 1895. Its narrative traverses a number of scientific theories like geological changes, evolution of life, and natural selection. Samuel Butler wrote a naive utopian satire that touches evolutionism. It was Erewhon, published in 1872. The novel suggests that machines may acquire consciousness by natural selection. One of the implications of the theory of evolution is the degeneration theory. Langster published Degeneration, a chapter in Darwinism in 1880. He made a conjecture that if a species does not encounter a challenging environment, it degenerates. Darwin refuted it, but the theory survived. The transformation of the lizard into snake in Wells's time machine is an instance and case. The time traveler speaks of an age when two races inhabit the earth. The race living on the surface is virtuous, while the race living in the subterranean recesses has turned evil. It is an endorsement of the theory of degeneration. Apparently, evolution does not mean the rise of morality and intellect also. The mad scientist in another of his novels, The Island of Dr. Moreau, is yet another example of the degeneration theory in fiction. Bram Stoker's Dracula novels in 1897 deals with vampirism. Darwin's work was definitely a game changer, both in science as well as in literature. It supplied ideas to creative authors in abundance, not only during the Victorian times but also in the ages ahead. It is no surprise that G.B. Shaw, a playwright of the modern age, but nurtured by the ideas and the developments in the latter half of the 19th century, buttressed Darwinism in his modern seminal plays like Man and Superman. Bye for now.